Welcome back to another episode of Unrolled. I'm Sam Young.
I'm James Andrew, and this is Zeus.
This week of Unrolled, we've got good Datsuns coming into the workshop to have a look at. We've got junk Datsuns who have already been in the workshop, and we do a quick rack to top it all off.
Roll the intro. Well, this week you got to have a look at probably one of the nicest Datsuns I think I've ever seen.
Mate, I tell you what, this thing is next level. The workmanship and the quality of this thing has to be seen to be believed.
I couldn't believe how nicely it presented and how gorgeous it was whilst being a functioning race car, rally car.
Mate, for a car to be in this sort of nick, knowing full well that Rick takes it out on the weekends and hangs it out sideways in the dirt is just insane.
Crazy.
So Rick brought the car into Sparesbox HQ for us to have a closer look, and so we could show you guys exactly what goes into a rally car of this caliber. Take a quick look. G'day Rick, thanks for coming down mate. Obviously, we've got your Datsun in front of us here. Mate, start off, what is this and what do you do with it?
Well, this is a 1971 model Datsun 1600, also known as a P510 in UK, in the States. This car is heavily modified as a gravel stage rally car, so doing short stage events, not long distance and endurance events, which is what it used to do years ago. The Datsun 1600 is a fairly iconic rally car through the years. I'm sure many people have followed the history of the cars, and everyone sort of knows something about a Datsun 1600, and everyone knows someone that's had one, which is really cool. So we sort of took this car, which we've had quite a passion for, and just do a bit of rallying with it. It's a pretty cool thing.
Which explains these knobby looking Pirellis you've got on this thing, right? Gravel rally you mentioned.
Gravel rally, that's right, off-road in the dirt, stages between 8 and 40 Ks generally. These things look pretty knobbly and they look pretty chunky, but they don't last long. You'll get probably 100 odd Ks out of a set of fronts and somewhere between 8 and 80 out of a set of rears. 80's good going.
Truth,
8 Ks is about our record to not just bald, but just shredded. You know, that depends on hot days and stuff like that. Anyway.
So how long have you had this car? Because it presents really well for something that does gravel rally.
Well, I used to circuit race Datsun 600s years ago, highly modified cars, but still had the silhouette of the 1971 model car. I always wanted to build the ultimate version of that car in some form of motorsport vehicle, and it ended up being a rally car. So this car, it was a rally car to start with. So we've changed its purpose a bit and modified it to be a completely different version of a rally car. But yeah, it's a fairly fresh car. I bought the car in 2014, I think. Spent about 5 years building the damn thing, and finally we got ourselves a fully built rally car. Hence the fact that it's still fairly new. It hasn't done a lot of miles, but it's the miles it has done have put a pretty big smile on my face.
No doubt, and I dare say it's been, as you say, heavily modified. There's no way this has an A15 in it, right?
The L16 was the first one.
Okay.
Yes, no. If that answers your question, hasn't got an L16. No.
L20.
L20, no. No. It's got a couple of camshafts in it.
A couple, okay.
Couple of camshafts, and it hasn't even got a carburetor or even 2 carburetors. It's a fairly common motor that's in it, but not in the way this one's being used. This one hasn't got a turbo on it. They usually put turbos on this kind of motor, which makes this car very unique.
Yeah. So there's obviously some key differences between this and a dedicated track car. I think first and foremost, the most obvious ones, the Terra Trip, and the fact that the fuses are set out like this in front of you.
That's right.
Obviously that's for a serviceability point of view, and the Terra Trip, obviously for stage time and that sort of thing for the navigator. Yeah, so the navigator can still find a point of reference.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and that blue switch there is the zeroing out for your intermittent Terra Trip.
There's actually a lot involved in that. It's not simply just reading.
There's a lot involved.
You've got to be doing this and paying attention to that as well. It's a big goal. Oh well, sideways, more push.
And often you'll run a stage twice whether it be twice in the same direction or turn around and run it the other direction later on in the afternoon. So you're writing notes based upon what you're seeing on your notes to modify them for the afternoon's run or tomorrow's run, whatever it might be. And if you're coming back in the other reverse direction, then you've got to work out what's going to catch you in the reverse direction and modify your notes for that direction, then put them back into the notes for the next one. It's really, that's a seat I don't want to sit in.
It'd be like doing your accounting on a roller coaster.
It's exactly what it'd be like, you know, when you've got your head down, you'd get motion sickness really easy. That's not a place I want to be. I want to be fair square on this side of the car in every instance. I don't want to be sitting there at all.
And obviously being a rally car, number one is safety, and this cage is a pretty serious looking cage, mate.
Yeah.
It's really nicely painted actually as well. And obviously this is all, this all has to adhere to a certain standard, the category you're being in.
Most certainly, this is done beyond the minimum standards for the category and for the class that we rally in. Obviously, the stronger the rally car, the stiffer the chassis, you know, the better the car. But secondly, you know, I'm rallying now with 3 kids at home, you know, companies and all the rest of it, as we're not getting any younger. So the cage had to be really stiff and safe. First and foremost for me and also the navigator. So we've got jobs we need to go to on Monday morning. And that's why it needs to be there. But also, you know, that also helps with stiffness of the car and chassis twist and flex and all the rest of it, which these cars cop such a hiding through the forest and the terrain that you can run over in these cars is so astonishing that you really do need a cage as solid as this to keep everything in place. You know, it's so important. It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, like, you're not racing for sheep stations. Fun is the aim, right?
That's right. And going home on Sunday night to the kids, that's the ultimate aim, but do it with a smile on your face. So that's exactly what it's all about. This car was built with the utmost safety in mind. You'll see lots of little features in the car which may not sort of appear as safety features, but the collapsible steering column, this has got electric power steering in this car, but has got a collapsible steering column. The pedals are a long way away from you and they're on the floor, which assists for left foot braking, which we can go into later, but also safer in accident. So this car was really built with safety in mind because for very obvious reasons, the job that I'm going to on Monday morning is paying the bills for the weekend that I've just had.
Yeah. And with something like this, something that's, you know, 40 to 50 years old.
That's right.
The modern stuff is already a very safe car.
That's right.
Compared to how the basic Datsun 1600.
Absolutely, yeah. The whole body's been seam welded, but that's just not enough. Like this is a what are we talking? 50-year-old car now, 51 years of age. It's not a stiff body shell, and for the type of modification we're doing to these cars, they haven't evolved to go this fast. They're not designed to go this fast, and so you have to do all this stuff to evolve the car so it is capable of getting that sort of pace for long distances. You know, in some rallies 3 days, you get 4 days. And they have to stand up to it, and it's astonishing punishment these things get.
Based on that, mate, I see a sneaky little Motec under the dash here. You mentioned before that it's got a couple of camshafts. Can we have a look under there and find out exactly why this car is a bit of a weapon?
Absolutely.
All right, so a couple of camshafts, SR20 based, I assume. What's going on, Rick?
Yeah, so it's a SR20 VE head. Based on a 180SX S14 bottom end, rear drive bottom end, front wheel drive east-west head mated to that. It's pretty common modification. 2.2 stroker, 14.5 to 1, almost 15 to 1 compression, which is up there for this. Gen V independent throttle bodies, 48mm total throttle bodies, and custom exhaust. So everything's sort of custom around the front of the car. This isn't a standard SR type engine. Trying to do a normally aspirated non-turbo SR is a really, really difficult thing to do because everyone has turbos on them. So to try to get this inlet manifold made up, no one in Australia could do it. No one in America could do it. Got a guy in Vancouver who didn't want to do it, but he had the capability of doing it, and he ended up doing it for me. And he's saying that there are people that probably could do it in Australia, but no one's interested. Yeah. You know, and no one wants to do a one-off bespoke item for that. So all the pulley wheels at the front of the car, they're all bespoke, all the alternator stuff. Engine mounts are all bespoke. Everything is very unique to this car. But being a 2.2 stroker, normally aspirated car, it makes a hell of a sound, and at nearly 9,000 revs,
It sounds
nuts.
glorious.
It does, yeah. That
And-
coupled with the gearbox, which has got flat shift, which we can get into later, it's just amazing.
And dare I ask, the question that everyone's probably going to be asking, what sort of power does a naturally aspirated 2.2 litre make with 14.5 kilometers
Yeah.
compression?
Well, look, there's a lot of numbers floating around for all these sort of cars. Genuinely, this makes sort of just shy of 300 horsepower.
That is serious poke for an engine of that capacity.
It is. There's a lot of guys claiming they're getting this out of them, but they're not. Look, it's an expensive motor if it's been done right. I'm not going to go showing dyno sheets to the world. I've been sworn to secrecy from engine builders and all the rest of it. This is stuff which has stuff in it that is sort of a bit secretive, but not hugely so. But it's a fast car. It's a
Dare I
fast
ask,
car.
What does this thing weigh?
It's pretty heavy actually. This a good circuit 1600, maybe about 1,000 kilos. This one is about 1150, fully loaded, half a tank of fuel, spare wheels, jacks, toolboxes, under tray protection, lights, like the whole bit. It's a heavy, rally cars are heavy. That's just how they are. There's so much stuff when you've got first aid kits, you've got so much stuff through these.
You've got an extra seat, your Terra trip, the
That's
cage
exactly
is
right.
usually beefed
Extra
up,
seat
all the
stuff,
extra
yep,
gear, the
that's right.
lights, all that gear.
Yep, so look, 1150, I do know that a guy by the name of Brendan Reeves has another car similar spec to this. There's only a couple of them in the country that are similar spec to this. There might be 4 in total, but there's 2 particular cars, this and one that is owned by a guy by the name of Brendan Reeves. I know his is about 1,050, but he's got full carbon front. We've got fiberglass bonnet and stuff, but he's got he's got Kevlar and carbon everywhere. He's the whole built from a bare shell. The whole car was built to be light, and he pulled 100 kilos out of it. So
But
it's not bad.
being what it may, 1150 kilos, just shy of 300 horsepower. Sometimes on dirt.
Mostly on dirt.
Mostly on dirt. That sounds like an absolute hoot. No, to be honest, I don't think I'd want any more under my right foot.
With only rear-wheel drive, that's right. It's wild.
Half the battle's putting it down, right? It's better to use all 300 odd horsepower you may have than it is to only be using 200 of your 500.
Oh, absolutely,
So-
absolutely, yeah. And rallying in Australia, our roads aren't they're technical, but they're often very fast. So you are often on full throttle. You're on full throttle a lot of the time, surprising amount. And it does wheel spin it. You come out of a corner in second gear and click into third, and it will wheel spin back the other direction, and it will wheel spin 130 k's an hour, 100.
So more
odd on the
horsepower
gravel.
really isn't an issue. I don't think.
You're trying to get grip out of it as well. So it's always a balance, isn't it? Any motorsport car is a balance between horsepower and grip.
And you run the risk of making a car that's difficult to drive and potentially no fun to drive.
That's exactly right, yeah. So this car it's a bit twitchy, but it's not over the top. It's still a bit lazy in the rear end. The engine probably makes it twitchy, but we've settled it down in the rear end to make it a bit lazy, and it's pretty good.
Well guys, this has certainly been one of the more insane cars we've had come into the workshop. If you guys have Datto 1600s or anything of the like, let us know in the comments below, as you guys, myself and Sandy are all sort of Datto freaks here. Rick, thanks again for bringing your car down to us and showing us, mate. Hopefully we'll catch you out at Eastern Creek or Wakefield Park, potentially out in the bush sometime
Jones.
soon.
Yep. No, thanks for having me, Jones. It's been awesome, mate. Always happy to go to the track and watch you guys hang around as well, mate. You've got some cool things here. It's awesome.
Maybe we'll get out together sometime.
Definitely. Love to.
Sounds
Love
good.
to, for sure.
That car was pretty sick, I'll be honest. There was 3 things I loved about it. The first is pretty ridiculous. It's the cheap latches on the boot. I hadn't seen them up close and personal before. They're just like nice and functional and work. And I'm just like, yeah, I like that. The second thing I loved about it was the twin fuel setup in the boot. He's running 2 circuits, not because it needs all that fuel, but just in case one fails, he has no downtime mid-rally. Just flicks a switch and he goes over to the second system. And the third was that the SR remained NA.
Yeah, I kind of agree. That's one of my favourite things as well. Pretty weird.
Yeah.
I think Rick actually mentioned that everyone goes turbo with an SR. Of
Yep.
course they do, but an NA SR20 is something different.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, with just shy of 300 horsepower, that little thing would be a blast going through the bush at night.
Absolutely, absolutely insane. It's funny that the 2.2 SR20 NA makes more power than most people's turbo SRs anyway, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool for rally. Most people think they need to see a cosmetic surgeon to get their rack fixed, but not us. not us here, because you are about to show the people how to install a quick rack.
That's right, this is the first Go Fast mod I've done to the Alfetta race car, and I started with a quick rack, which is not something you see very often, so I thought I'd share with everybody the process I go through. It's actually pretty easy, but makes a huge difference, especially when it's a dedicated track car. Yeah. So let's show them. G'day guys, welcome back to the Sparesbox workshop. What I've got here on the bench here today is a steering rack from my 1977 Alfetta GTV. Now, as you guys may know, this car is destined to be a race car, and the factory ratio in the standard steering rack leaves a lot to be desired. So what do you do about that sort of thing? You get yourself one of these. This is a quick rack. This shortens the number of turns required to go from center to lock in either direction, meaning that on the racetrack, corrections require a smaller amount of input, making the car easier to drive and shortening the reaction time for you to respond to the car's movements on track. Now, there are drawbacks to a quick rack. In a car like this that doesn't have power steering, this does increase the steering weight. So if a car is already heavy on the wheel, it's going to get heavier. These are usually available in a couple of different ratios, and you want to be mindful of what you're using the car for, as this car will be used a little bit on the street as well, just to go to and from the racetrack, and slower tracks like Wakefield Park. I don't want it to be too heavy to turn. This should decrease it to about 2 turns lock to lock, which is perfect for my use. So now all I have to do is dismantle my old steering rack, clean it up, and install these along with some new bearings and circlips. So I'm going to be disassembling this rack right down to its bare case. I'm going to clean it up, give it a quick lick of paint, and then reassemble it with the new components. Now, as there are many different ways that a steering rack can be constructed and assembled, even with something basic like this, your standard non-assisted manual steering rack, there are numerous ways they can assemble them. So when you are pulling it apart for the first time, if you're not familiar with the specific rack you're doing, make sure you take note of how things went together, the order in which they went, as there are quite often spacers, shims, and springs in steering racks, and you need to know where they went, as it is absolutely crucial. Just like a chocolate milkshake, only crunchy. Home. Look at that. No good. That's it guys, as you saw, it's a really quick and easy job that you can do yourself on your car at home. Now obviously, I'm going to replace the inner and outer rack ends on this as well as the boots before it goes in the vehicle, which is a little while down the road now. As you may have seen, I still have all the bodywork to do, but this is a worthwhile modification to any dedicated track car, as it makes the car completely different to drive, a lot of fun and very precise, which I can't wait to experience.
Well, you guys love four-wheel drives, and one way the future might be heading is electronic vehicles. And something that's landed on our desk in the news this week is Ford's F-150 EV model.
Yeah, man, I know this is right up your sort of alley because this is probably what you're going to end up in 10 or 15 years,
Let's
mate.
cross our paws and hope that that isn't the case. I mean, I, as a traditionalist, hate electronic vehicles. I love turbo diesels, I love soot, I love loud engines, but this one does have a lot of things going for it. It's got a funny looking front trunk. I'm kidding. It does have the ability to tow over 4.5 tonne easily.
Jeez.
Which, if you want to take everything camping plus the kitchen sink, ample. It's going to be more powerful than their 500 horsepower F-150, so it's got a bit of bunty. And I think it's got around an 8,000 kilowatt inverter, which if you want to take hair dryers, if you want to, you know, you getting ready in the morning, hair straightener, all those sorts of things, you can plug it straight into the car. You don't need to add it on, and you've got all the battery packs in the vehicle.
I'm with you. I like a loud motor, but with everything going electric, that actually sounds really good. I mean, battery packs, you've got massive storage because there's no engine hanging about.
Exactly.
So you've got your frunk, you've got the rear tray tows, 4.5 tonne.
Yep.
I mean, if we all have to have our gasoline engines as weekend toys for the racetrack, this would make an awesome tow rig to take down to the track for the weekend because you've got all your camping gear, it'll tow your car, all that. So it actually sounds pretty good.
It would be perfect. And I'm pretty sure it was one of the biggest hesitations about electronic vehicles and long distance in Australia, camping, four-wheel driving, trucking, is the battery size. But I think this has got enough batteries to power a house for 10 days. Like, it's got a huge amount of range in that battery pack. So Ford are ticking a lot of boxes with it. So it's pretty impressive.
Not bad. Now, next up on the news, man.
This is exciting.
This happened on the weekend, so I'm sure a lot of guys have already seen it.
Yep.
As you know, big McLaren fan.
Yep.
And they did really well at the Grand Prix over the weekend.
They did.
And so Lando Norris, third outright, which is awesome for them.
Great to see.
Awesome result. And Ricciardo did a big charge from the back of the grid all the way to 7th.
Yep.
So I was really stoked to see it. And it was an eventful race too.
It was. There was a lot going on. It was nice to see Hamilton outside the top 3 for a change, which was good. Bottas was in there. And it's good to see Ricciardo got up into the points and climbed something like 10 spots, which is a hell of a charge.
Yeah, it was a good drive. Good drive from them all weekend. All weekend they're on fire. And it's kind of good to see someone hot on the heels of Mercedes because I'm pretty sick of seeing them win.
That's right. The Silver Arrows can take a back seat. Now, speaking of things that can also take a back seat, I would personally like to see Sandy's Skyline take a back seat because this thing is a piece of...
Speaking of one car you wouldn't want to get in the back seat of.
Sandy's Skyline is that car. Did you see that thing when he brought it in?
Mate, I got up close and personal with it and him recently when we pulled the old stuffed RB20 out of the hole in the front of the poor thing.
Aren't all RB20s stuffed?
Townness and make them.
Yeah, that's right.
But there were some sights to see in that car.
You know, it has potential. I can see what Sandy's seeing in a long way down in the distance.
At least $400 in scrap metal value?
Yeah, something like that. I was thinking maybe 500, but let's just show the people what we have to deal with this week.
I've finally managed to bring the Skyline into the shop. We're excited to get started on it, pull the motor, put the new goodie in. You've already had an intro to it, but I think I'm going to get James to run over a couple of things that is not up to scratch with the car. Hopefully we'll address it. But
you want a nitpick?
Yeah.
We can nitpick.
We'll have a look.
Starter's Sandy, mate. What's this? What's this doing? Is this supposed to be part of the bodywork? Bonnet overlaps the headlight, but not on that side, just on this side and that edge. I don't know what's going on there, mate, but yeah. Bumper's ready for the scrap. Doesn't even fit on the car properly. The front's off a different car, I assume, because it's a wrong bloody colour. This is the same finish as the centre of the country. It needs a vacuum inside. All the clear coat's sort of peeling. Looks like it hasn't had a bath in about 1,000,000 years. Is it actually attached? Or is it just kind of... I don't think that's in one piece.
We're going to get Sam's thoughts on it.
Oh my, I have no words. Well, I've got words, but I don't think any of them are going to make the edit if I say them. Oh, why does the front of it look like it was in the 2006 bushfires? Oh, that's the lights in one piece. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
line up with anything, but it's in one piece.
I had to get a replacement one. The last one was crap.
Oh, that one. Did Stevie Wonder do the panel gapping on this car? If you just bought this, I'd kick you in the nuts because this is a terrible buy.
You'd be wrong. I bought.
Don't try to operate
car already. I haven't even started on the bonnet.
I've had the.
tape of Ashay.
Yes, cut it all down. It's flimsy. It's Japanese.
Your bonnet latch is good.
I think I got it. Did I get it? What'd you do?
He didn't do nothing.
Okay, stop. There we go. There's a trick to it.
Oh my god. Oh. Simba. Simba.
I'm not doing that.
No.
Put it back on the car.
Simba.
What the hell's this, Sandy?
That's how fuse boxes
Mate.
are meant to be. Yeah.
You got some explaining to do.
No, that's that. You know that rare Japanese import option that you can tip. Really?
Sort of looks like a Euro set.
Really? Actually, there's a few Olympians that piss that colour.
But you're right. We're excited to get fixing on this.
There's no wear about it, mate. You are.
I'm excited.
Do you need that?
I'm excited to get fixing on this.
It almost ended up exactly.
My first step is to clean it all. So we're going to get to that.
Is it moon eyes because the surface of your paint looks like the surface of the moon?
The concrete actually has a better texture than the roof.
It does. It's just much smoother in
Yeah,
comparison.
that's much nicer. That's just. I think the inside might wait for another day, but at least the outside and the engine bay are a little bit cleaner. We can get to work on making the new motor happen.
It's like that far from the ground. How am I supposed to put that under that?
The Skyline's on the hoist. We've got all the oils and coolant dropped out of this one. I'm going to get this old donk out. I think there's not much to it. We just pull all the cables and hoses off and Bob's your uncle. Robert's your mother's brother. Who's the other one that knows your name? Sandra's your Mrs. Side hoe. I don't know, you'll get to see it. At least it's so low the motor will come out easy. Oh, check it out, guys. With everything detached, we've got the wiring, the plumbing, all the coolant and hoses and everything are off it. It's time to pull it out. Ah! with everything moved from that motor over to this motor, the alternator, the engine mounts, the brackets, and the pulleys, we're gonna go ahead and get the clutch, flywheel, and gearbox all made it up to this surface. We're gonna do the rear main at the same time, just because good measure, you don't want that leaking while it's in the car. And then the next step is to hoik it in. We'll sit it in there and see what we need to do.
How good's a low car?
Low cars are fine, mate. This is too low. I have to use the jack to get it off the hoist arms, and now I need another jack to get it off my jack.
Mint!
But lift your car up, mate!
Well, you know, the first step to building and rebuilding a motor is taking a completely stock motor and just painting it. And
That's what a rebuild constitutes, I'm pretty sure.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, you get a bit of VHT, you blast it, you find the ugliest crinkle red you can, you get your rocker covers, you spray it in that, and then you put it all together in the front of a bent Skyline, and you've got a $20,000 Japanese car as an investment, which is kind of bonkers.
Can I get a higher?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's been another Unrolled episode. And I'll tell you what, next week is going to be pretty exciting too for these people, because I get to go see probably one of your favourite cars, Lambo Diablo with the old school V12 in it.
I mean, of all the Lambos, that's one of them.
Yeah. So we head down to Heasman to take a look around, drop the 80 off for a little bit of TLC because we all know it needs it. And we get to check out their workshop, and they've got so much cool stuff going on. It's unbelievable.
There's always something awesome down at Heasman's.
The other thing that's awesome is I got back from Cape York, hence why I'm sitting here with this guy.
Don't know about that, but yeah.
The unfortunate bit is the 200 came back looking a little bit worse for wear.
Not the only unfortunate bit, bud.
So in next week's episode, we're going to be showing these guys how to prep your car back to looking glamorous after a big trip like that.
I mean, I'm a fan of trying not to ruin it in the first place, but
This is true. If
we're
it's
already in that
unavoidable-
boat.
Exactly right. So let's fingers crossed. We'll see you guys next week.